team selection time is finally back ahead of Game Week 8 after an international break which has seemed to have gone on forever. In this video you'll see I will have a chip active and it will be the bench boost chip. So if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. With all that being said, let's get straight into the team for Game Week 8. So naturally then we start in goal and the defence. You'll see with this team, my defence is pretty much set up how it would have been if I hadn't have been bench boosting. Let me just caveat that with my bench boost is not active yet, but is 90% sure that I will be activating it. Next week also works out as a pretty good bench boost week for me. So it is between this week and next, but I really fancy starting post-international break with a bit of a bang, so it's more than likely I will be activating it this week. And there is some pretty decent fixtures on my bench, as you can already see from the defence with Dubravka, with Leeds at home, and then the Leeds defender Rodon with Burnley away. Now, this isn't necessarily the order I would have put it. Probably would have had Rodon in as first sub, or even potentially in the starting 11. I might have been tempted to do that, but the starting 11 is pretty much 95% what I would have gone with anyway, so you can take some information from that anyway. Starting off then in goal, in the starting lineup, obviously David Raya, the best defence in the league, so very comfortable with him in between the sticks. And I might just add that with the Gabriel selection as well, with the double up on the Arsenal defence. I think we all know it's the best defence in the league. I'm very confident in these two players. Gabriel with that bit of attacking threat as well. But also a game, Fulham away, is a game that has potential for a clean sheet with their injury problems up top. Fulham, I'm hearing Muniz could be potentially injured, Jimenez as well. So that could lead to a tough day, certainly an attack for Fulham, but we know in FPL and the Premier League things don't always work out as they're supposed to. Next up then, let's start off from the left again, and we'll go with Chris Richards. Now this one pretty much picks himself, a home game against Bournemouth, but it is a high-flying Bournemouth who is playing very well. So am I expecting the clean sheet against Antoine Semenyo? Not necessarily, but he could be busy enough to pick up the DEFCON points, get those 4 points, maybe snatch a clean sheet, because he's up against my second player in this lineup, and that's Marco Senesi. I have a lot of players this week, especially with the bench boost, as I mentioned before, with Leeds v Burnley. I have a lot of players playing each other, which isn't always ideal, but I've said this in previous videos, I don't always mind it. You're almost covering all bases. It's more than likely you're not going to have an outstanding week, but you would like to think you would have a pretty average or maybe just slightly above average week, which isn't always a bad thing in FPL. You can't always nail it every week. But anyway, going back to Senesi, the DEFCON King, finally that streak was broken in the last game before the international break. Didn't quite pick up DEFCON, but I back him to be back on the DEFCON trail against Crystal Palace, certainly away as well. And the way Crystal Palace are playing themselves, I think he'll have a lot of defending to do. Then the final player, as we'd already covered, Gabriel. Virgil van Dijk at home to Manchester United. Now these fixtures are always a bit strange. They can go either way. They're either really tight affairs, or typically in recent years, Liverpool have absolutely dominated. One way or another, I think Virgil has a real potential for DEFCON in this one. I think United will create their chances because of the type of game, derby style game that it is. So I feel like DEFCON is incoming for Virg, but also the potential for the clean sheet. It remains to be seen if Manchester United can score. They've got a sticky record at Old Trafford's, at Anfield. So I've got to back Virgil and the Liverpool clean sheet in that one. Going ahead to the midfield. So here then I would have only technically started with the three midfielders going into this game week, with the double up in the Man City defence to start with Phil Foden and Reinders. Now, I've lost a little bit of patience with this double up. I brought them in a couple of weeks ago on the wild card in the hope that I would take advantage of those good Man City fixtures over the 3-week period that was incoming. This is about the end of that now. There's Everton game at home. After that, fixtures sort of turn for the worse for Manchester City. So I'm certainly happy to back potentially Phil Foden in this game. But you'll see a bit later, I have 3 free transfers and Reinders is on the chopping block for me. I've mentioned it in previous videos this week. What I don't like about Reinders, like, I'm not expecting miracles from a £5.8 million midfielder, but he doesn't offer enough going forward and he doesn't offer enough defensively to get the DEFCON points. So he's a little bit of an in-between player, and I'm not really a fan of that, especially when you've got somebody like, for example, on my bench there, Caicedo, who can pick up DEFCON points in maybe 3 out of 4 games potentially. I'd much prefer to back somebody like that at that price tag, at exactly the same price tag, than somebody like Reinders, who's really not chipping in with the goals that we thought. Like I said, wasn't expecting miracles, but maybe just a little bit more output than we have got from him. So yeah, you will see that potential transfer a little bit later on. Then obviously, final slot in the starting lineup would go to Antoine Semenyo naturally, who has just been absolutely incredible this season. For me, my player of the season so far by a country mile. I know Haaland's played very well with the goals, but Semenyo has been quite incredible all round. Absolute general play has been electric. And we certainly saw that in that last game before the international break where he was fantastic. So there was no debate on that one. He was always going to start. But like I said, as I move to my bench, it doesn't really matter with the bench boost active. I have Caicedo in that Nottingham Forest fixture, with it being an away game, hopefully a feisty game. Caicedo can chip in with those DEFCON points. Who knows, maybe he'll continue his incredible scoring run so far this season. I don't think that is sustainable for a player like Caicedo, who is a solid defensive midfielder, but you never know. I benched him for his 10-pointer last time out against Liverpool. Maybe he can repay the faith of him on my bench boost. I would love that, of course. And then also on my bench is Iliman Ndiaye against Manchester City. Now, he was the reason that maybe I would push the bench boost to next week, because it's not ideal. Manchester City away. But the way Everton have played this season, yes, they won't have Jack Grealish, which might hamper their attack a little bit. But Iliman Ndiaye, I feel like if anybody's going to snatch a goal in that sort of Man City game, and Everton are more than capable of scoring because they are playing well, I feel like it will be Iliman Ndiaye. Failing that, maybe, a lot of defending to do against Manchester City. We've seen already 2 games in a row as an attacking winger, he hit DEFCON. One of them in the Merseyside derby against Liverpool. So these bigger games, Iliman Ndiaye has a bit of DEFCON potential. So that's why I sort of edged towards backing him in that fixture. And at the end of the day, it's a bench boost. I've got plenty of options there that can get me points and make up points if Iliman Ndiaye doesn't. So I'm pretty comfortable with that decision. On top of that, let's move on to the attack. So it's all pretty straightforward here, pretty template, should we say. And it's Viktor Gyökeres up first. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd love to be able to bring in somebody like Saka right now. And you know what? I could downgrade Viktor Gyökeres just that little bit, upgrade Foden, and then I've got myself Bukayo Saka. But I don't think it's really worth 2 transfers. I'm sort of banking on that Gyökeres turn in form. Arsenal have some really good fixtures coming up. So I'm happy to carry on with Viktor Gyökeres in this attack, and Fulham away. I don't know. I fancy him to get back amongst the goals. That's why I've also put him as vice captain. But I'm pretty sure Haaland will be cemented in that City lineup against Everton. Moving on to Erling Haaland, like I said, captain this week. I don't think it can go anywhere else, especially with Erling Haaland's form currently this season. I don't think we'll be making too many gains if Haaland manages to haul in that game against Everton. But still, probably not as highly owned as we all think. I think he was knocking on 60%. So there's probably some minor gains to be had there, but certainly not going to be taking any risks in that department. Then finally, João Pedro, somebody who I've been screaming sort of to keep, with a lot of people deciding to transfer him out after a couple of blanks. Yeah, the XG, the XA isn't quite there, and certainly in recent games. But Chelsea have an incredible fixture run coming up with a lot of sort of promoted teams, green fixtures on the horizon right after this Nottingham Forest game. And I've said before, this Nottingham Forest game is not that game that maybe it was last season, with the obviously with the change of managers, the turmoil at Nottingham Forest. Chelsea could easily go there and turn Nottingham Forest over, and you would hope João Pedro will be on the other end of that. So for my money, João Pedro will get back to scoring, and hopefully scoring regularly in the upcoming weeks. Now, finally, let me move on to the potential transfer I am going to make this week. So now this transfer really reflects on what I just said about João Pedro and those Chelsea fixtures. So it would be Reinders coming out. It doesn't sit completely well with me taking somebody like Reinders out when he's got a green fixture against Everton. But like I stated before, he has been a bit of a disappointment in my eyes. Wasn't it, like I said, wasn't expecting miracles from him, but just something a little bit more. And 2 blanks in the last 2 games where they're considered easier fixtures for Man City. And they've struggled. So I really want to look to bring in Enzo Fernandez and capitalise on the Chelsea fixtures that are upcoming. I think he'll be playing in that number 10 role quite a lot in the next few weeks with Cole Palmer's injury and his injury doubts. Even if not, even when he plays that bit more box-to-box role, he's making great runs and great late runs into the box, and he's getting on the end of things a lot more than probably Reinders is. And when he is playing that deeper role, he probably plays quite a similar position to Reinders, but Enzo has proven to be a lot more effective. He's also on a good number of corners for Chelsea as well, so there's potential for assists from them. I think he represents value, and with 1.3 million in my bank, I can make this transfer quite comfortably. And let me say, I haven't made it just yet, but I am 95% sure I am going to make this, and it would put me on a triple up for Chelsea, but then in the future may leave me open to maybe transferring out Caicedo, but that's a transfer plan for the future. And then going into next week, I would still have 3 transfers yet again, which would be quite nice. So that'll be my transfer for this week. Tell me what you think. Put it in the comments. Who would you be bringing in this week, or who in your teams are you bringing in this week? It'd be great to know. So it's really appreciated you sticking around to the end of the video. If you did like it, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. It really helps out the channel. Good luck in game week 8. It's great to have FPL back to ruin our weekends, but it probably doesn't ruin our weekends anymore than an international break does, let's be honest. So I will catch you in that next video, which will probably be next week now. So I'll see you then, and good luck, guys.